We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, and today we are talking some hardcore Georgia football here in late May. That's what I love to do, guys. That's what I'm about. That's what we do here on the Glory UGA podcast. I've been wanting to do this episode for a couple of weeks now, but I've had to keep pushing it back because of some big recruiting developments with guys like Jared Curtis committing, the whole Jackson Cantwell saga. All of that caused me to push it back a little bit. But it's finally time, man. It is finally time to get to my post-spring defensive depth chart projection, even if it is a week or two late. I did the offense about 3-ish or so weeks ago. Got a little sidetracked, yes, but we're back, guys. We're back in a big way today. And I'm going to do this just like I did the offense a couple weeks back. I'm going to go position by position up and down this Georgia defense, and I'm going to give you my 2 deep projection. Some spots I might go a little bit deeper than 2 deep, but at least my 2 deep projection at every single position. And this is going to be based on what we learned from spring practice. Go back to I think late January, I did my way too early offensive and defensive depth chart projection, but that was just based off what we knew from last season and some of the guys that we had coming into the programs, the young guys, and what we kind of expected from them. But we didn't have anything hard on the field to operate off of. But now that's changed. We have an entire spring under our belt. So this is based on what we learned from spring practice, what I saw at practice, what I saw at G-Day, practice reports, of course, some information I got from people that I trust here in Athens. So we're going to have some fun with this, guys. We're going to go deep. Again, this is what we do. This is what we do on the Glory UJ podcast. But before we go any further, if you haven't already, and this is the kind of content that you're looking for in your Georgia football coverage, go ahead, guys. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn those notifications on. You don't want to miss any of the content we have for you guys, preparing you for the 2025 season. This is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. We're just getting started. We have a ton of content planned for all you diehard Georgia fans. So subscribe right now, like, comment, get that conversation started. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Love to hear from you guys. And for full episodes of our show, make sure to check it out wherever you get your podcast. All right, guys, we got a lot to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get right to it. Last week on the show, I talked about how Georgia is seemingly maybe a little underrated coming into at least the summer months. We'll see what happens as the summer progresses, how people's opinions maybe evolve. But there are some people, and I laid out some specific examples for you on the episode last week, which you can go back and check out. Guys like Josh Pate, Joel Klatt, of course. But there are some people that are down-ish on this Georgia team relative to recent history. Okay, I'm not saying the thing like Georgia's not going to finish in the top 25, but certainly not as high on Georgia as we've seen in recent years. And I think a big part of that skepticism are doubts about the Georgia defense, particularly its ability to replace, let's just be real, guys, it's a lot of top-end talent and production that's out the door. They're not going to be back. Guys like Jalen Walker, guys like Michael Williams, Malachi Starks, Tyron Ingram-Dawkins, those kind of guys, and a lot more, those guys are gone. So there are people out there legitimately doubting Georgia and its defense in ways that I don't think we've really seen since pre-2021, since we went on that national championship run, since this program has elevated itself to one of the premier programs in all of college football. But your boy here is not one of those people doubting the Dogs, especially the Georgia defense. And look, guys, I get it. If you have doubts about the Georgia defense, I don't think you're crazy. I don't think it's insane to have questions about the Georgia defense. I think that's fair to a degree. We did lose more than a couple impact players. Again, guys like Jalen Walker, the Buckus Award winner, Michael Williams, top 10 draft pick, Malachi Starks, 3 overall draft picks, first-round draft picks, and a bunch of other draft picks later on in the draft. So, yeah, we lost some impact players. Zero doubt about that. And on top of that, we do have a defense that I think it's fair to say is light on experience. I think lighter on experience than what we've seen from recent Georgia defenses. And we just don't really have those firmly established household names like we did coming to last year and in previous years. You don't have you lose a Jordan Davis, you lose a Devontae Wyatt and a Kobe Dean, but you still have a Jalen Carter coming back, right? You don't have a Michael Williams coming back that everybody knows about. It's talking about preseason as a top 10 kind of guy. And Malachi Starks was a former preseason or former first team All-American. You don't have that kind of established player right now on this Georgia defense. So I think that's part of where the doubts are coming from. But here's what I would tell you. One thing that this Georgia defense emphatically does not lack is talent. It's talent, man. In fact, I would argue, and I'm going to explain why as we go through the show today, that this unit is loaded, straight up loaded with talent, loaded with guys that you might not know their name, but guys that have bided their time, that have put in the work, that have developed under some of the best defensive coaches in all of college football and are now poised to step into the spotlight the way a guy like Jalen Walker did a year ago. Now, the average college football fan, and even a lot of the guys that cover college football nationally because they don't know the ins and outs of every roster, they might not know the names of these guys right now here in late May. They might not know their names, but I'm telling you guys, that is going to change. That is going to change in a big way come September, come October, when we get to the middle of the season, because the future remains incredibly bright for this Georgia defense, both in the immediate future and years down the road. But today, I'm not going to concern ourselves with years down the road. That's another podcast for another day. Today, I do want to focus on the immediate future, and a Georgia defense that I think not only has a chance to, but a Georgia defense that I'm just going to be real with you guys. All right, and maybe I'm being aggressive here. Okay, I know you want to call me a homer, say I'm a Georgia guy, fine, whatever. All right, throw your best shots at me. But this is a Georgia defense that I expect, me personally, Tyler, I expect to be among the elite defensive units in all of college football this year. That is my expectation for this Georgia team, this Georgia defense, even if we don't have those bona fide household names that are established in the national consciousness right now, heading into the season a couple months before we kick off the 2025 year. So with that, guys, let's go ahead. Let's dive into this depth chart. I'm going to start up front. I'm going to start the edge position here because I think this is probably the position where there's the biggest questions on this Georgia team because we lost a ton of production. Like, I'm not going to lie, guys. Like, there's no beating around the bush here. We lost a ton of pass rushing production from last year's team. We lost our two top pass rushers with Jalen Walker and Chaz Chandler, who were tied for the team lead with 6.5 sacks. One of those guys, Jalen Walker, was the Buckus Award winner. Mykel Williams, top 10 draft pick, played a little 5-tech for us, played a little edge for us, moved him around situationally, but still, big-time player for Georgia, even he wasn't fully healthy last year. Damon Wilson Jr., who is maybe one of those guys that was going to step into a bigger role this year, he decided, nah, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to go elsewhere. He transfers out. These guys are gone. All right, these guys are gone. So there is a hole coming into the season in pass rushing production. We've got to find a way to replace that production. We have to find answers. And I told you guys coming in the spring, that was one of my biggest questions for this entire Georgia football team. We've got to find pass rushing production. If this team wants to legitimately compete for a national title, you've got to find ways to affect the passer. Because if you're going to win the national title, you're going to have to beat teams that have elite quarterbacks. And you guys saw it last year in the NFL playoffs. How were they able to take down the Chiefs, right? Think about this, right? How were the Eagles able to take down the Chiefs in the Super Bowl? They just got after Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is incredible. Had no chance because of the pass rushing ability, the prowess of the Philadelphia Eagle defense. So we got to find a way. We got to find a way to replace that production. And I think we did a heck of a job. About as good of a job as you could in the spring transfer portal window of filling that need. Going out and getting Elo Madozie from Army. And I know, Army, what? Georgia's taking players from Army, Elo Madozie? I never heard this guy. Turn on the tape, guys. Turn on the tape. Army was pretty good last year. So I had a lot of fun watching Army. Hey, go America, right? So when Army's good, hey, let's watch Army. Let's cheer for Army. It doesn't hurt a Georgia fan to root for Army a little bit on the side there. So I watched a fair amount of Army last year. And this guy, I'm telling you, he was legit. I had no idea he was coming to Georgia when I was watching him last year. But this guy can play. And if you didn't watch him play at all last year, go turn on the tape, man. What you're going to see is a guy at 6'3", 245 that is a straight-up freak athlete off the edge with his burst, his explosiveness, his ability to bend off the edge. He's got good length. This guy is going to be an impact player day one for Georgia at the edge position, a position that we desperately needed to find some help at, and we needed to find not just a body, but a dude. And that's what we got in Elo Madozie, one of the top guys in the spring portal window at that position, had 6.5 sacks last year for Army. He's going to step in my opinion, right away and be that starter for Georgia at Jack linebacker. And that's going to free up a guy like Gabe Harris, who I had kind of penciled in coming into the season as, okay, he's going to have to be the guy for us at Jack linebacker. But I think that's going to free up him to potentially play at the position, more at the position that he's played throughout the early portion of his career, which would be the 5 tech. We'll get back to Gabe here in a second. So Elo Madozie is at the top of that edge position for me. Right behind him, a guy that had a really strong spring, who got a ton of reps because we were just light on bodies, and because we obviously lost a lot of production. We had guys like Gabe Harris that were injured, but Quintavious Johnson. Now, I want to take you back to last summer, okay? So last July, about 10 months ago. This is a guy as a true freshman that when he came into college as an early enrollee, I didn't really expect this guy to do much because we were so loaded at the edge rushing position. So there's just not opportunity for him to do much of anything. But that didn't stop him from opening some eyes last fall camp. This guy was making a move to the point that I was like, maybe. I keep hearing his name. You can see him out there at practice during fall camp. It's like, well, this guy can play, man. So like maybe we find a way to get him on the field from time to time. It didn't really happen for him as a true freshman, right? Because again, we were just so loaded, it was hard to find snaps for him. But Quintavious Johnson was showing flashes of what he could be as a true freshman last fall. This spring, with all the reps that he was able to get by necessity, but still he got those reps, this guy's development accelerated in a way that I think he is going to be poised to have a big impact on this Georgia defense. Guy that's 6'4", 255, tall, long, athletic. I would like to see him add a little bit of weight to be able to hold up a little bit more effectively against the run on those standard downs. But he's a guy that has the length, has the athleticism to be an impact pass rusher. Now, we got to see him on the field in real life situations in terms of like, okay, do you have the pass rushing prowess? I know you have the athleticism, but do you have the technical prowess to be able to rush the passer against some of the best teams that you are going to face, against truly elite offensive linemen in the SEC? That's a question that has to be answered right now, but I feel very confident saying that Elo Madozie and Quintavious Johnson are going to be that 1-2 punch at the Jack linebacker position for Georgia in 2025. Now, a couple other guys I'm going to mention here real quick. Chris Jones is a guy that we brought in probably last season as a freshman, initially as an inside linebacker. That's what we recruited him as coming out of the Virginia area. But he's also a guy that's a little bigger, and we're so stacked at inside linebacker, it's just going to be hard for him to find snaps there. But of those guys at inside linebacker, he's got more of the body type and the ability, the skill set to play more like a true jack edge position for us. So I thought did some really good things. When I saw him at practice, I saw him at G-Day, I was very impressed with him in his first real practice reps, getting work as an edge rusher, because he was an inside linebacker last year. So I think this guy, as the season wears on, I'm not going to say right away, but as the season wears on, he continues to develop that position. Watch out for him. I think he might be a guy that can make some plays for us there. Chris Cole, who we'll get to in a little bit here at inside linebacker, I'm going to mention him really quickly. This is a guy that I do think situationally on third downs, when we get to our third down packages, our dime packages, is going to have a role similar-ish to how we used Jalen Walker a year ago. I think he's a guy that has that versatility the way that Jalen did a year ago, and I could see us using him as that edge rusher situationally at times in certain packages on third downs, because he has that ability, he has that athleticism, he has the length, he has all those things that you would want. So that's my two deep there. Some honorable mentions. Of course, you got Isaiah Gibson, big 5-star guy coming out of high school who got a lot of reps, did get banged up a little bit, but got a lot of reps throughout the spring because, again, we had so many guys that were out at that position. And there's a chance he could come in and play some snaps right away. But you get Elo Madozie, that helps fill that immediate need. I think Quintavious Johnson right now is still ahead of him. There could be some snaps for Gibson situationally. There could be some snaps when guys get injured, which, knock on wood, it's college football. Things happen. We saw all the injuries last year. But right now, I don't see him ahead of those guys. But he's still in the mix. We'll see what happens throughout the course of fall camp when we get there in a couple of months. All right. Let's go 5-tech here. Since I mentioned edge, let's go 5-tech, because I want to get to Gabe Harris, because this is a guy that when I did this episode, like my way too early depth chart projection, I had Gabe Harris penciled in as Georgia's starting jack linebacker, our starting edge player. I am going to adjust that right now because of the addition of Elo Madozie. I do think that Gabe can play jack. I think that Gabe can be an effective player off the edge for us at that jack linebacker position. That's really what he was recruited as. He came in that same class with Damon Wilson Jr., with Samuel Mpemba, and people kind of just forgot about Gabe Harris for a minute there. It was like, okay, we got Damon Wilson Jr. He was a late addition to the class, 5-star guy, Samuel Mpemba, big get, and there's like, oh yeah, Gabe Harris. But when I watch tape, and you can go back and roll the tape, guys, when we were kind of analyzing that recruiting class, I loved Gabe Harris's tape. I thought he was the most technically sound coming out of high school. Maybe he didn't have the highest ceiling of those guys, but in terms of where he was, in terms of polish coming out of high school, I thought he was ahead of those other guys. And he kind of got on the field about as much as you saw from Damon Wilson Jr. And Pimbo was a guy that didn't go on the field as much, and that didn't surprise me because he had a little bit more of a ways to go in terms of like developing like from a technical standpoint. But Harris is a guy that has spent the first 2 years of his career primarily playing the 5-tech defensive end position situationally because, again, coming out of high school, he was more of a jack. So my concern with Gabe playing the 5-tech in recent years is that he's just hasn't been as big as our typical 5-tech is. Because we're looking at guys that like are Michael Williams size, they're 275 pounds, 280 pounds at times. We've had guys like Jonathan Ledbetter back in the days in that 280, 285 pound range. Because at the 5-tech, your number one job is to defend the run. Like that's not a premier pass rushing position in our defense. The premier pass rushing position is jack. 5-tech, you can rush the passer. Sure, we'll have you rush the passer at times, but your number one job is to set the edge, play defense, or to stop the run, right? And Gabe is like 6'4", 260. Not a small guy, but that's not as big as our typical 5-tech defensive end is. But that's where he's played most of his snaps to this point in his career. So I think he has a comfort level there. And here's the thing with Gabe, too. He missed all of spring. He was one of those guys, one of the 700,000 guys that we had this year out with the spring, with a labrum procedure. So he didn't practice at all. And this is a guy, again, that's been getting most of his reps at practice and games at the 5-tech. Some at jack, sure, but not a ton. And he didn't get those reps during the spring. So that leads you to believe, well, spring is kind of the time where if you're going to make a positional move, that's when you would do it. Well, he didn't get those reps. So is fall camp enough time for him to make that move to jack linebacker full time? When you got a guy like Elam Madozi coming in, he needs reps too. I don't know. So that's why I think Gabe Harris will probably be the starting 5-tech. And it might be more of a situational role for him because he's still kind of, for my liking, he's still a little light. I think he's kind of a tweener between those two positions. Honestly, I think we'll probably use him like we did Michael Williams last year. I think he'll play a little bit of both, depending on the situation, depending on the opponent. I think it'll be a little bit of both. If we're playing a team that wants to run the football a lot, especially on standard downs, he's probably not going to be in the game a ton at 5-tech. But if we're playing a team that likes to throw the ball a lot, and especially when we get on third downs, I think you'll see him in that role. Now, the other guy I will look at 5-tech, the guy that I thought if Gabe was going to play more edge, that I thought would probably start at 5-tech, is rising, second-year player. We'll call him a redshirt freshman because he did miss most of last year. But Joseph Jonah Ajanye, a former 5-star guy that is still just scratching the surface of how good this young man can be. He's another guy that as soon as he got on campus, spring, last fall, was making waves. Like he's making people take notice of this guy. And look, part of that was because Michael Williams was banged up, TID was banged up, coming off an injury, so he got a ton of reps in his early enrollee spring and fall camp. And so his development was accelerated more than you typically see for an early enrollee true freshman. So he got actual legit reps on the field early last year with some of the injuries that we were dealing with. You remember Michael Williams going down with an injury in that first game of the year against Clemson. So JJA was playing, man, and then he got an injury of his own. He hurt his foot, then he missed the rest of the year. So we'll call him a redshirt freshman. I think technically qualifies as a redshirt freshman. I love this guy. I think he's a prototype for Georgia at the 5-tech position. So it's about Gabe Harris being a little lighter in the britches for my liking at that spot. That's not the case with Joseph Jonah-Ajanye. He's in that 275 to 285 range. Very, very, very long, extremely athletic. And the thing that you love about JJA is football's still kind of new to him. So he comes over from Africa, I think Nigeria, if I remember correctly, and he starts playing football in high school. That's the first time a guy ever played football in his life, right? Comes over and is obviously incredibly talented, incredibly athletic, but still, again, it's just scratching the surface in terms of what he can be when he figures it all out, when he polishes his game up from a technical standpoint. I love the guy. I think he's got the strength, the power, the athleticism to be a big-time player for Georgia at the 5-tech. So I do think that he's like 1A, 1B with Gabe Harris. It might be a situational thing in how we use those guys. So those are probably the top two for me at 5-tech. I'm going to throw one more guy in here at you, though. A guy that had a big spring. He was not really as much on my radar pre-spring, but now post-spring he is, and that's Justin Green. From the Gwinnett County area, a Mountain View High School guy. I'm an old Gwinnett County guy myself. Not Mountain View, but Gwinnett County. 6'4", 275. This is a guy that again, kind of flew under the radar. He's coming into his second year, so redshirt freshman. Kind of flew under the radar in year one. We had a number one recruiting class, right? And he's a talented guy, but maybe not at the top of that recruiting list. But this is a guy that had a really strong spring. And again, he took advantage of opportunities because you have Gabe Harris banged up. TID moves on. No Michael Williams. There's opportunities to be had at that position. And he is one of them that took full advantage of that. I was very impressed with what I saw from him at the coaches clinic during those practices. And also at G-Day, I think he is going to be in that rotation. I feel pretty strongly about that right now. And the other guy, one more. I know I said one more. Last one. If you watched Georgia play last year, which I know you all did, there were certain opponents that when they, like Georgia Tech, for example, when they run the ball a lot, right? Where, especially on early standard downs, where we would slide out a 3-tech defensive end to that 5-tech spot. We want more beef on the field, right? So when you have a guy, let's say you have Christian Miller and you have Xavier McLeod, two guys that I think really are more 3-techs than anything, well, one of them can play 3-tech, and if you're playing a team that wants to run the ball a lot, like based on the opponent, you can slide one of those guys out there and play some 5-tech as well. So I expect to see that at times this year. That'll be dictated by the opponent. I just don't think that's going to be like a by rule kind of thing. So I think Gabe Harris, Joseph Jonah, John Nathan, Justin Green will probably be your top 3 at the 5-tech. Speaking of those defensive linemen on the interior, let's go there. 3-tech. Christian Miller is a guy that I have been high on for a long, long time. I about had a heart attack when he announced he was going to transfer prior to last year, after last spring practice. And I was very excited when he said, oh yeah, my bad, I'm lying, y'all, I'm coming back to Georgia, when we got that taken care of. Very excited about that. I think I did a video back then, like why that was big news for Georgia. I think this guy has, I'm just going to say it, man, I think he has potential to be an elite 3-tech defensive tackle. I think he's got that skill set. I know you haven't seen it full time yet, like see this guy like be a Jalen Carter level disruptor. And I don't think he has Jalen Carter level talent. I'm not saying he's going to be like a top 10 NFL draft, but I think he can be a big-time player for Georgia on the interior of our defensive line. You go back to his first year playing as a redshirt freshman, he was basically having to play 0-tech. He's not a 0-tech guy. He's like 310 pounds, okay? He's like a 305-pound guy. He's not a 0-tech, but he held up well at that spot. Last year, he got to play more of a true 3-tech. And he still had to play some 0-tech, but he had to play more 3. He's a 3-tech all the way, guys, in terms of his size, in terms of his ability to be disruptive, rushing the pass from that position, because he's got a lot of twitch in his game, guys. I think he's the twitchiest guy that we have on the interior of our defensive line. Again, I'm not saying Jalen Carter level twitch, but I think he's got some twitch. I think he's got some explosiveness in his game, in that first step quickness. The guy I always compare him to, and I'll say it again right here for those of you who are new to the show. Remember Tyler Clark years ago, right? Early in the Kirby Smart era? I see like a carbon copy of Tyler Clark when I look at Christian Miller. And Tyler Clark, man, I know he wasn't Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis. Like, I know he wasn't a first-round guy. That guy was a very productive interior guy for Georgia. And the name of his game was that first-step quickness, right? That twitch off the ball. And I think Christian Miller is very similar to that. So if he's healthy, which he missed all of spring, which he should be fine. He should be fine in fall camp. I would project him right now to be our starter at the 3-tech. Right behind him is a guy that I'm also sky high on. I think this guy's ceiling is off the charts, and that is Xavier McLeod, the guy that transferred over from South Carolina prior to last year, was banged up like every other defensive lineman, except for Christian Miller, Nas Stackhouse, and TID the first couple games of the year. But, last year, it was a developmental year for him because he left South Carolina like halfway through the 2023 year. So he didn't get much playing time. There wasn't much development going on there. He comes to Georgia, and you saw the talent right away. I remember his first G-Day here. I was like, okay, yeah, he's flashing, but you got to do more consistently. And that was what year one was about for him. But as the year wore on, he got more and more reps. Part of that was Christian Miller going down with an injury late last year. And I was very impressed with what I saw from Xavier McLeod. I think he's got really good strength, and he's really strong at the point of attack. I think he's got good quickness. Maybe not quite the level of a Christian Miller or Warren Brinson, but good quickness. And I think this guy can give you some pass rush from the interior like Christian Miller can. I was really impressed with him in that SEC championship game, guys. Go back and watch the game. I was rewatching it again over the weekend. And I'm telling you, this guy made a number of plays in the backfield against one of the better teams that we played all year. I think he has a high-level potential on this Georgia defense, and I think you're going to start to see that, I think, early this year. So I love him there with Christian Miller at that 3-tech. Jordan Hall's the other guy, can absolutely play 3-tech, for sure. And again, we'll probably move these guys around. They have some versatility. But I see Jordan Hall right now more as a nose tackle. okay? And this is a guy, let's not forget about Jordan Hall, guys. This was a 5-star guy, a big get for Georgia coming out of high school. As a freshman, played some, was in and out of the lineup, got some spot duty, and did some good things at times. But he was a freshman, right? Even Jalen Carter wasn't that as a freshman. Even Jordan Davis wasn't that guy as a freshman. That's a learning year, right? And then year 2, you're kind of like, all right, this is the year that you're going to see it from Jordan Hall. Well, it wasn't because of injury. Not one, but 2 stress fractures, one in each leg. That basically cost him the entire year. He played a handful of snaps all year long. But I still believe in this guy. I still remember watching his clips from the All-Star practices where he's just dominating the best offensive lineman in the country coming out of high school. This guy has that point of attack strengthness. He's got some quickness to his game. I think that at 6'4", 320, when you look at, we have guys like Christian Miller and Xavier McLeod, who I think both of them are more 3-techs than they are 0-techs. I think that means Jordan Hall is going to be more of a nose for us this year, just based on the other guys that we have and where they fit. He'll play some 3-tech too, probably, but I see him more as a nose. And then behind him, a guy that I also think has a really bright future at Georgia and really had a strong spring. We needed it, is Nnamdi Agboko. I say that we needed it from Nnamdi, guys, because that's what he was recruited to be. He is a Jordan Davis body type, okay? 6'4", 340 pounds. That guy was recruited to play that position. And even though I think Jordan Hall can play the nose tackle effectively, he's still not built the way that a guy like Jordan Davis was, right? And I guess still is. And that's when you have a guy like that, a Jordan Davis type guy, and a John Jenkins type guy in our defense at that position, that's a game changer for Georgia. And I think Nnamdi Agboko has that ability. He has the size. I like what I saw from this spring in terms of his athleticism there as well. I think he's got some flexibility in his game. He was strong at the point of attack, and he's still just a pup, man. He's still just growing. He's growing. He's still a young guy. So I think early on you'll see a lot of Jordan Hall there. I think as the season progresses, I think you're going to see more and more of Nnamdi Agboko. I think the more we see of him, the better off the Georgia defense will be, because, again, he has that thing that we need at that position, which is that prototype size at that nose tackle position. So there you go, guys. That is the front of the Georgia defense. Let's move back to the second level, and let's go inside linebacker. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The entire video, you can go back and check this out from the spring if you want more detail on how I feel about the inside linebacker position in Georgia. I think this is one of the, if not the most talented position units in all of college football. Not just the Georgia team, certainly the Georgia team. I think all of college football. People might not know all of these guys' names yet, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, but that will change. Right? Again, like, did people know who Jalen Walker was outside the Georgia fan base prior to last year? Was he a household name? No, he was not. What happened last year when he got his opportunity? Yeah, Buckets Award winner, right? Year 3 rule with Kirby Smart at inside linebacker. Well, I think you have some guys that could certainly be in line to have a Jalen Walker-esque year 3 in C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson. Both guys, highly recruited dudes. Raylan Wilson was a 5-star guy. C.J. Allen was a highly recruited top 100 4-star. Raylan Wilson, we flipped from Michigan late in that cycle, and I was thrilled about that because I think physically, I think his ceiling is off the charts. CJ has been the better player to this point in their respective careers. Part of that was as a freshman, he was healthy, and Raylan got banged up in fall camp as a freshman, and that set him back. He missed the first month or so of his freshman year, and CJ kind of just took it and ran with it and had a good, solid freshman year. I think people kind of exaggerated the type of year he has as a freshman. Like, he had some good moments. He also made some mistakes. But last year, I thought CJ Allen took a huge step in year 2, and I am fully expecting CJ Allen to have a massive year 3. Again, that year 3 rule with Georgia linebackers. Roquan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Walker, right? All year 3, all Buckets Award winners. I can't tell you that's going to happen with CJ Allen or Raylan Wilson, but I'm also not going to tell you it can't happen because I believe in these guys. And CJ is the one who's played more, 6'1", 235. He's a leader on this defense. He knows the defense in and out now. He was victimized with eye discipline at times early in his career, but he's gotten a lot better at that. He's become better as a cover guy. That's one area he was victimized too early in his career. He's become a better guy in coverage. I still wouldn't say he's an elite cover guy, but better in that regard. Raylan Wilson, again, banged up as a freshman. Also victimized from time to time with eye discipline issues. Raylan is a better athlete, in my opinion, than C.J. Allen. Not quite as big, not quite as effective between the tackles as C.J. is, but I think he's a better athlete, a better sideline type guy. The one thing I think that C.J. has on Raylan is I think instinctually he's a little more of a natural inside linebacker. I do question Raylan's instincts from time to time. I think he sometimes is thinking out there too much, and maybe that was just a function of him being a young linebacker. But when the guy knows what to do, and like last year when we weren't playing teams that use a lot of misdirection in their offense, and he just could like do see ball, get ball. Raylan Wilson was awesome. I think his two best games of the year were both games against Texas, and I don't think that's coincidental. Texas, yeah, they do a lot of screen game stuff, but they didn't have a mobile quarterback, so there wasn't as much misdirection in their offense, and so I thought he was really effective in those games, being able to see ball, get ball, react, and go fly. And you saw, especially in the SEC championship game, the guy was flying all over the field, and you saw what he can be. So if he can put it all together this year, he has a chance to be an all-SEC, maybe, All-American might be a stretch, but that kind of player. So I think those are probably your top two guys to open the season at inside linebacker, but it's not just those two guys. We are loaded at inside linebacker. I mentioned Chris Cole earlier. This is a guy that's a kind of a jack-of-all-trades linebacker for us. He got the versatility that Jalen Walker had. I think we're going to use him in a very similar fashion to how we use Jalen Walker. So someone asked a question of like, hey, how are you going to replace Jalen Walker? Well, Jalen was really freaking good. We're talking about a Buckets Award winner. But Chris Cole will enable us to do a lot of the same things that we did with Jalen this year with him, because he's a guy that can stand up and play off the ball as an inside linebacker, the way that Jalen did, he kind of figured out how to do last year. He can rush the passer off the edge, which we saw him do at times last year in the middle of the year. He played against Texas, played a couple games there. When Smile Munson was out with injury, he was part of our third down dime package. He also, and here's why I think he might be actually a touch better than Jalen. I don't think he's as good of a pass rusher as Jalen Walker. Jalen, that was his elite trait, but he's good. He's a really good pass rusher. Has better length than Jalen did. But I do think that Cole functions more effectively in space. I think he covers in space better. That was one of the weaknesses of Jalen Walker. Jalen was awesome. Loved the guy. But if teams could get him matched up in coverage one-on-one, they were able to exploit him from time to time last year. You're not going to be able to do that as easily with Chris Cole. He's just a better space player. He's got more fluidity to his game. Okay, again, so what you sacrifice and maybe pass rush a little bit. He's not quite the edge rusher that Jalen was. At least we haven't seen that yet. We've seen good edge rushing ability, but maybe just not Jalen Walker level edge rushing ability. But we have seen him function more effectively in space than Jalen did last year. So what you give up maybe a little bit rushing the passer, you gain with what he can do in space. We can also do those things that Jalen Walker did last year for us, spying the quarterback, triggering if the quarterback breaks the pocket, those kind of things. We can do all of those things with Chris Cole. He is going to be, he's going to be a stud for Georgia this year. I am very, very excited about what he can be at 6'3", 245. I equate him to Quay Walker. I see a lot of Quay Walker and just the build and what he can do, because Quay can rush a passer as well off the edge. We didn't use him as much in that role because we also had Channing Tindall that did more of that as well. But Chris, I think, looks a lot like Quay Walker to me out there. And then the guy that was the #1 inside linebacker in the country, a top 10 prospect in last year's recruiting class, Justin Williams. Did not really see the field at all last year, certainly not in meaningful situations. That was in large part due, he had to get bigger, man. He was very thin last year. He had to get bigger, stronger. He's still a little thin for my liking, but the athleticism is absurd. And he's just too good of an athlete and too good of a player to keep off the field this year. And he had a massive spring. Cole had a huge spring. Justin Williams might have made the biggest jump of anybody on the defense this spring. He is going to play a lot for Georgia. We like to rotate our inside linebackers. He is going to be a part of that rotation. Zero questions asked. In fact, he's going to eat into somebody's snaps. Like if Raylan Wilson doesn't elevate his game this year, and he probably will. I'm very hopeful. I'm very high on Raylan. But CJ and Raylan better be on their A game all year, because Justin Williams and Chris Cole, they are coming, okay? And Justin Williams, like as good of an athlete as Chris Cole is, Justin Williams is an even better athlete, even faster than Cole. Not quite as big of a frame, not quite as long at 6'2", 220. So I do have questions maybe a little bit in terms of like, all right, how effective are you going to be between the tackles? But man, the athleticism, it's just too dynamic to keep this guy off the field. So I am very excited about Justin Williams and the kind of spring he had. He's going to play for Georgia. I want him to continue to get bigger. It's not that he's not trying. He's one of those guys that the word I get from people on the program guys is he's on a weight gain program. Like we're trying to pack the pounds on this guy. He's just one of those dudes that has some metabolism that he just can't add weight. He cannot add weight the way that we want him to, the way that he wants to. But he's trying. It's not for lack of trying. But if he can get to 225, 230, I'd feel a little bit better there. But just a freak athlete, man. So very, very excited about the inside linebacker room. And let's move back to the third level. Let's go cornerback here. The one definite here is Dalen Everett. He is going to start at one of our cornerback positions. He was out for most of spring. He was there practicing, but banged up. So we know what we have in Dalen. I thought Dalen was spectacular for us the back half of last year. First part of the year was still growing, still developing. Last year, or 2023, took his bumps, man. He was a guy that was learning. He was growing, developing, but it was a different guy the last half of last year. And I think he is poised to have like a Kamari Lassiter jump in like his second year as a starter, the way that we saw Kamari make that jump in his second full year as a starter. I mean, let's not forget, Dalen was a 5-star guy coming to high school. Flipped him from Clemson late in that cycle. And I think you're starting to see his talent take over. And it's not just the coverage play. The thing that the criticism I've had for all of our cornerbacks for a couple of years now is ball skills, awareness. Like, our guys are typically in position, just not making plays. I mean, think about Julian Humphrey. I still have nightmares at Alabama game. Like, you're there, dude. Turn around and play on the ball. Don't just flail around. Like, what are we doing? Going back to Keely Ringo, that's been an issue for us, right? And it was an issue for Dalen early in his career. I thought he improved tremendously in that regard last year, especially, again, the SEC championship game, going back to that interception he had. I mean, playing man coverage there, the ball skills, be able to break on that ball, make a play on it. He took his game to another level, and I think there's even a different level he can take it to this year. So I'm very high on Dalen Everett. I think he's a top 10 cornerback in all of college football. He is the surefire starter for Georgia at cornerback. Now, the other position, it's a wide open battle, guys. I don't pretend to know right now exactly how that's going to play out. I think it's very much going to go into the season. I think all these guys are going to play. I think Daniel Harris, Ellis Robinson, even DeMello Jones are going to get opportunities, and whoever plays the best, whoever emerges, it'll be their job. I think they're all going to play, especially in the first 2 games of the season where we're playing G5 teams and FCS teams. Like, yeah, okay, they're going to have opportunities there, and that battle will play out, and we'll see who wins it and who starts that game against Tennessee when we go to Knoxville week 3. I thought throughout most of spring practice, I was going to say Ellis Robinson the 4th. Because what I saw from them, I liked Ellis Robinson, okay? The issue with Ellis last year is that he was too small, and he wasn't physical enough on the outside in the perimeter screen game, the perimeter run game, right? And that's an area where Dalen Everett excels. Like, one of the reasons Dalen Everett was able to get on the field ahead of Daniel Harris, ahead of a guy like Julian Humphrey, even go back to 2023, was his physicality out there against the run, against the screen game. And you have to be. Like, that is something that Kirby demands from his cornerbacks. And Everett is a really physical corner, bigger corner, physical guy out there. And Ellis, that's just not his game. He's a smaller guy. I think he's still probably our best pure cover guy on the team. But he's a smaller guy. He got a little bit bigger. I liked what I saw from him throughout the spring when I got a chance to lay eyes on him. With his ability to come up and defend the perimeter screen game, the perimeter run game, he's more willing. I think he's a more capable tackler out there. He's more physical than he was last year. I think the message has gotten across, but it's still just not his forte. That's not what he does best. But the question will become, can he do it well enough to where his ability to cover and just shut down guys will compensate for it? I mean, that's the trade-off. And Kirby Smart is going to have to make that decision, right? Dante Williams is going to have to make that decision. T-Rob would have to make that decision. So I thought I was going to say Ellis Robinson the 4th. He was the number 2 player in the country coming out of that 2024 class. Highly, highly talented guy. But right now, I'm going to very tenuously stick with Daniel Harris, okay? Harris got beat a couple times at G-Day for touchdowns. A lot of guys got beat at G-Day. I mean, we were just throwing the ball around. He was in position. I know Daniel Harris wasn't perfect down the stretch when he took over that starting job. But I thought he did a much better job with his ball skills than what we saw from Julian Humphrey, right? He got beat a couple times, but he also made some plays in the ball. And the one thing that Daniel Harris has that really none of the other guys at cornerback have on our team is the length. His length is crazy, man. Like, it's like he's like a knuckle dragger. Like, his arms are so long. His body is so long. Does he have the athleticism that Ellis has? No. I think Ellis is a better overall athlete, a better cover guy. I think he's got better hips. One of my questions with Daniel Harris is like your hips, like getting in and out of breaks. When you play like a really shifty receiver, you can get in and out of his breaks really quickly. Can you stay with him? I had questions about that last year, but he's got the length, and that helps him compensate, even if he might not have the hips and athleticism that a guy like Ellis Robinson has. So right now, very tentatively, I am going to still stick with Daniel Harris, but again, guys, Ellis Robinson very easily could win that job. Very easily. And it's not going to be decided until I think we get into the season, like not even through fall camp. Somebody's going to have to start week 1, but I think all those guys are going to play. And also, don't sleep on DeMello Jones. DeMello Jones is a player, man. Like, this is a dude. Everyone wants to talk about Ellis Robinson the 4th, and I love Ellis for good reason. The guy, I think, again, is the best cover guy on our team in my opinion. But DeMello is a guy that's an awesome cover guy in his own right. He's got outstanding athleticism, really good hips. I think he's more physical than Ella. So I'm just saying, don't sleep on him, man. Like we have really good options, and that's the thing, right? Like I don't know who's going to emerge there, but whoever emerges, I feel very confident is going to be a big time player for Georgia at cornerback because the competition that he had to beat out to win that job was elite. So I feel good about it. I just don't know right now who that is, who it's going to be. But if I have to give you somebody, I'll say Daniel Harris. Then the star position, a guy that I thought had a massive spring for Georgia in year 3 is Janelle Aguero. If you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know me. When he came out of high school a couple years ago, I was telling you, like, this guy's a stud. This is a dude. I thought he had a chance to potentially star at some point as a true freshman. Did not end up happening that way, but Tyke Smith ended up having a great year. But he is still the prototype for the Kirby Smart defense at the star position at 5'11", 205. Why do I say he's a prototype? With the star position in our defense, guys, it's a tweener of sorts. He's just like you're part corner, part linebacker, part inside linebacker. Because in our defense, the star defender has actual run fit responsibilities in our defense. Like in the box, you are taking on offensive linemen on a relatively common basis. Like that's commonplace in our defense. You have to be big enough and strong enough to be able to handle those run fit responsibilities. But you also have to be athletic enough and good enough as a cover guy to defend some of these smaller, faster, quicker, shiftier slot receivers. That's a really tough position to play. It really is, guys. You have to be a little bit of both. And it's hard to find bodies like that. Janelle Aguero is a body like that. He's that kind of body type. And I know last year, kind of in and out of the lineup at times. We played Malachi Starks a lot, especially on third downs, at that kind of star position. You can bring Dan Jackson in. You have KJ Bolden in at safety, and you put Malachi at star. But when Janelle was playing, I thought Janelle really improved as the year went on. One thing he does extraordinarily well is he cuts people in half. Like he's a big-time physical presence at the star position. I also think he's a good cover guy. He got beat a couple times at G-Day on slot fades, but it wasn't that he got burned. All right, it's just it happens sometimes. Like he was in every time he got beat, whether I think it was Zachariah Branch at one point, when he got beat, he was right there. He was in position. And he's making a play on the ball, but the ball, like, you're a star and you throw your hand up and the ball, and you kind of turn around looking like that, the ball just kind of comes right next to your hand and doesn't hit your hand. Like it was a great throw and catch. Sometimes the offense just makes a great play, but he was right there in position. I don't really have any concerns. In fact, I was very impressed. I was encouraged by the fact that he was running stride for stride with a guy like Zachariah Branch. That was more encouraging to me. Like, yeah, I know you make the play on the ball. I'd love to see you make the play, but he was there. And I think that was very encouraging to go along with what he can do in the box as a physical presence defending the run. So he had a huge spring. I think he's going to build off what he did last year. I think this is the year that Janelle Aguero is going to live up to what I thought he could be coming out of high school. So love him there. Backing him up, I think it's going to be Adrian Maddox based off what I saw at practice in G-Day. This is the guy coming from UAB. I like him. He's not as thick as Janelle Aguero, but he's physical, got some good coverage ability, and played the majority of the time with the two defense there at star at G-Day. Like him there, I think Kyron Jones is a guy to watch. All the three secondary guys that we brought from the portal, whether it's Maddox, Branch, Jaden Harris, I think like all three could play safety or star. But right now, based on what I saw this spring, it looked like Adrian Maddox was working more as a star than a safety. And then at safety, we know, you don't need me to tell you, KJ Bolden is going to step right in to a full-time starting role at safety. I think he's going to have an all-SEC, if not an all-American caliber year. This guy's unbelievable, man. And what he was able to do for Georgia as a true freshman, like from the jump, ridiculous. He was incredible for Georgia. So he's 100% the guy. Now, the position next to him at safety, that's open. Right now, I'm going to stick with who I projected coming into spring, and that's Ja'Cory Thomas. Nothing that happened this spring has disabused me of this idea that Ja'Cory Thomas is going to step in and be a starter for Georgia at safety, at least to open the season next to KJ Bolden. Ja'Cory Thomas is not the best athlete in the world. He's not going to test off the charts, okay? He's not. But this is a guy that's been in the system for a long time, and he's a plenty good enough athlete. I would compare him a lot to like a guy like Chris Smith. And I say that because Chris Smith, you remember him, like Chris Smith first couple years on campus wasn't playing at all. It's like, that guy's still on the roster? But then he gets this opportunity, and he never looked back because what was he doing while he was waiting? He was working. He wasn't complaining. He wasn't putting his head down. He wasn't being a locker room cancer. He wasn't hitting the portal. He put his head down. He went to work, had a good attitude, developed, got better. When his time came, he was ready to ball out. And I see a lot of the same things in Ja'Cory Thomas. This guy could have transferred a number of different times, but he did exactly what Chris Smith did. Put his head down, went to work, had a good attitude, developed, took the coaching. Now his time is coming. And I think you're going to see a highly productive year from Ja'Cory Thomas at that safety position. But even if it doesn't work out with Ja'Cory, we went out and we got some depth at that position. We got Jaden Harris from Miami, who made the move full-time to safety last year. And look, in Miami, he was up and down, guys. Probably more down than up. He didn't have a great year. Nobody in that Miami defense really did last year. But the skill set is there, and you have to understand that he was raw at that position last year. Now he's got a full year under his belt. He's going to have better defensive coaching. I mean, Kirby Smartson has an active role coaching him up. He's going to develop more this year. I think down the road, this guy could be a really good safety, and he could potentially push Ja'Cory Thomas as well. Zion Branch, with the guys that we brought in from the portal with Jaden Harris, Zion Branch, and Adrian Maddox, I think physically Zion Branch is the one that looks the part more than the other two. I mean, that dude is built out there, man. So I think he's got a bright future as well. Again, I just think that Ja'Cory Thomas, with his knowledge of our system, his experience in our system, I just think he's going to be hard to beat out in fall camp. Now, if he doesn't play up to the standard during the season, the door could potentially be open because other guys are really talented as well. But I'm going to go KJ Ball and Ja'Cory Thomas as your top two at safety, and then Jaden Harris and Zion Branch backing them up at your 2D. But there you go, guys. That's it. That is my post-spring Georgia defensive depth chart projection. We'll come back and we will revisit this once again following fall camp one more time ahead of the 2025 season. We'll do a final depth chart projection. But that's where we are right now based off of everything that I learned coming out of spring practice. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. This is what I love to do, man. Like this puts a smile on my face, man. I'm talking some hardcore Georgia football, especially here in May when it's like the depths of the college football offseason. So if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead, subscribe right now. All you diehards, you know this is the kind of content you're looking for, the Georgia football coverage you're looking for. So subscribe, turn those notifications, like, comment, let me know what you think. Did I miss a guy? Do you disagree with one of my projections here? Love to hear from you guys. But thank you, man. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. All your support, guys. It is, man. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. But I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs.
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.